Hi, guys. I wanted to come on right now and I wanted to basically just speak a little bit about something that is near and dear to my heart right now. And that is, are we as a Black community coming apart? And I think that it's a very interesting topic because I do see where, and you can see it online, that it is occurring, it's fracturing. And I started to look at what are the things that are common to many Black people. And it has always been, I think, for the last maybe 50 years, is that racism is something that quickly unites Black folks to say, hey, we are against racism, and that's not something that we want to have go on, unabated. But outside of racism, it was once religion, and religion used to unite us, and we would just get united as Christians. I mean, I'm from Jamaica, and you have several different denominations, but the majority of the folks are Christians. You have Rastafarians, but they're a small bunch. But the majority was Christian, and I think in Black America that's the same thing, Christian. But now you see it fractured. You have Muslims, you have Christians, you have people who just no longer want to believe in God. They're atheists, or they say they don't know. They're agnostics. So as this community moves away from religion is no longer a unifying force, people may say it's people have decided that it's the family structure. We're all agreed that we want to be married and we all have the same goal. But we can see this online now. You can see people are choosing different goals, and their goals are not necessarily they're not the typical goals that once had. Everyone, first time I used to hear about the American dream, that you wanted two cars in the garage, a house with a two-car garage, and a couple rooms. That's not everyone's dream right now. Some folks have different plans, and you can hear it. Some folks want to have a harem of women. Some folks want to be, travel abroad to meet new women. Some women want to, you know, date men outside of their race, all of that stuff. So it is fracturing, and you can see that. And in terms of lifestyle, we don't all do the same things. We all have our different interests, our different things that we're interested in. And so what I think is happening right before our eyes is that the Black community is fracturing. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that, don't think that I think for one moment that that is a bad thing for the Black community. I actually think it's good for the Black community to kind of separate a bit. And a few years ago, this guy, Charles Murray, did this book called, Coming Apart: The State of White America, because he saw, and this was back, I think, in 2012 that he released this book. He saw that his own white America was coming apart, and he called it Fishtown. And I can't remember what the Fishtown was supposed to be for the poorer folks, and he spoke of the other town that would be of richer folks. And he saw it. He saw that some folks were spending all their time trying to get their kids into expensive universities, trying to get them into paid internships, all of that stuff. And some folks were just struggling to get by. And he wrote, as I said, he wrote this book. He released this book 12 years ago. And as you can see, you know, I do see white America, I do see white Canada come apart. There are rich folks, there are middle class folks, and there are folks just struggling to get by. But this book has not been written for Black America, but it is happening right before our eyes. Black America, Black Canada is coming apart. And before I lived in Canada, I lived in Jamaica, and Jamaica came apart. And it came apart after a while simply because people decided after, that do we follow the regular way? And a big part of it is, where you wake up one day and you say, is what I'm doing today, is it making any sense? And that's a big thing that everyone will have to figure out, for themselves. Because, the current way that people are doing things, a lot of people are unhappy with it. And that's why so many people are coming online on Twitter, in Reddit, in YouTube, and they're saying, we're trying something new, and they're calling themselves all manner of different names. Right now, on YouTube or Twitter, you choose your tribe. You're either a passport brother, you are if you're a woman, you're a divester, if or you are I don't know. There's a whole bunch of them, right? There's a whole bunch of them that are coming up. SYSBM, all of them. So people are deciding, I want to choose my own tribe. I am not satisfied with where I am. I want to be a part of something different. And I don't think it's a negative thing, because one of the things that I have seen in my own life in Jamaica, especially in Jamaica, is that as blacks, we splintered into classes very quickly. Like, we got independence in 1962, and by 1990, Jamaica was a very class stratified country. And you had blacks who had moved into the middle class, a large portion of blacks stayed in the lower class, and a few went into the upper class. And they're doing the same thing that I'm seeing right happening now. The middle class blacks and the upper class blacks married out. They married out disproportionately. And that I'm seeing happening right now, that there's a bunch of folks who have decided that they don't want to be black anymore. And I think that their choices that they're making, is obvious that the next generation, they want to not necessarily look like them. And I don't think they're being very honest with themselves by, well, you know what, it's their personal choice. But if they're going to go to Latin America and or to Thailand, or if you're a woman and you say, I want to be with a white man or a non-black man, it's obvious that the next generation will look lighter complected. And that happened in Jamaica. That's nothing new. And it created this middle class. And if you go back to Jamaica, you'll hear them call them brownings. I mean, we may call them mixed folks, but that's what happened after a while. And those mixed folks, after a while, they left Jamaica. A lot of them left Jamaica and went to the US and lived there. And a big part of it is, you know, for us as people, is that when we're not happy with our tribe, a lot of times we do change our tribe. And I think that that's what's happening right now. People are changing their tribe. And I wanted to show something. I sometimes watch different shows, and I came across a fresh and fit different folks. And every time they have debates with these women, I noticed that they tell them that men build and women, and men are needed and women are not necessarily that needed. But one of the things that I've never fully understood is, as fresh and fit are black. I am black. As black men, we are so fluid in the things that we claim that we have done, because I noticed that we say to these women that we build things. But if we were to have this discussion with someone who was a white man, would we tell him that we built these things? And that's where I think we're being disingenuous. I think that right now, as I look at us as men, especially, one of the things that face us right now is that we cannot just hide behind this gender war and blaming black women and all that stuff. We are now have decided, many of us, to enter into the mainstream. And by entering the mainstream, what that means is our competition is no longer women. Our competition becomes more and more trying to carve out our piece of the pie. And to carve out our piece of the pie will be difficult, and it's not easy. For us, many of us, to gain success, to rise out of mediocrity, will mean that you have to be innovative, you have to create something. And I saw this back in Jamaica. There were so many folks that I saw who started businesses, and these businesses grew, and these people were able to amass, I wouldn't say a lot of wealth, but they got enough wealth that they could move from the lower class to the upper middle class. Some even moved to the lower upper class, but they had to be innovative. They had to be enterprising. And as they became enterprising, invariably, there is no doubt, and I'm telling you, over time, you saw that they were. I remember that book what I read as a child called Animal Farm. I read it as a teenager. As the pigs overthrew the farmer, the pigs started putting on the clothes of the farmer. And right now, I do see with us as black men, as we climb the ladder of success. The few of us who do, I see us becoming more mainstream and no longer keeping it real. And the folks that keep it real, one of the things that I always say to them, I've heard people talk about, they're a real one and all that stuff. How is that working for you? You know, one of the things is I think that we cannot deny is that as a culture, definitely as a culture, the current urban black culture does not work. It does not work. And it is something that needs to be improved because there's too much violence, there's too much underperforming schools, there's too much misogyny, a whole bunch of stuff, and that's why people leave. And so as people get more dissatisfied with their condition, the black community will become more apart. And what may happen is exactly what I happened in Jamaica, is that there'll be a lot of folks left behind. And those folks that are left behind, those folks will become, a lot of them, they will become dissatisfied. They will become, I think, envious and look at the folks that have left them behind and become upset. Because I think that a lot of people throw around this term, the red pill, and they think the red pill has something to do with women. I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is understanding the matrix and understand. Some people think that you fight the matrix. No, what you do, you understand it. And you look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z, he figured it out. He figured out that he could start as, a rapper. And he probably, even before he became a rapper, he was probably a hustler. Then he became a rapper. And then he slowly moved away from rapping. And now, he's a mogul. And if you look at him today, a lot of folks, a lot of his rap counterparts don't think that he is keeping it real anymore. But I don't expect Jay-Z to keep it real because that'd be stupid of him. He'll end up like Young Dolph or another person, who stays in his community like Nipsey Russell. And what do they do with those folks? So what happens is these guys, they have learned that they have to move away from the community to succeed. But guess what? Those that are left behind can become angry and envious, or they can figure out, well, what is my ticket out? And that's going to be the thing that's going to happen over the next, to me, for the next 30 years. A lot of black men are going to get truly red pilled. And it's not red pill in understanding the nature of women, but red pill in understanding what is the nature of the matrix. The matrix in the sense of, how do I get ahead? How do I navigate? How do I become part of the mainstream and have mainstream success? And the sooner people deprogram themselves and get away from being a real brother or, all of that stuff, they will figure out that the biggest challenge they have is not getting women. It's not that's never going to be the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge they'll have is becoming productive and innovative. And that's where they will be in a higher echelon within the matrix. When Andrew Tate came around, he basically tried to tell people, about the matrix and how, you can, defeat it and all of that stuff. Look where he is now. He's in a jail and they've confiscated most of his cars. I've never fully understood what he was trying to do until I found out that he had Hustlers University, where he was basically signing up young men who would pay him, what was it, $50 a month so that they could be in his course. But the key is not defeating the matrix. It's figuring out how to work within it. And the matrix is just a system and society. And that's what, when we send kids to school, we send them, a funny thing that I came across, through my journeys is that, K through 12 just gives you enough information to make sure that you can learn a skill. And once you pass K through 12 in school, it is now time to get a skill that will, feed you for the rest of your life. And what I find is a lot of us, and I've come across young people like that in my own life. We waste our time in K through 12. We just completely waste that time. And when we get out of high school, that at that point we figure out that we are behind. And a lot of people go get behind because they're not looking at life in the way in which they're saying, and I think that that's where the richer folks or the more stable folks are able to help their children earlier, because they can tell their children very, very early in life that you have to succeed to make it. I think a lot of poorer folks and folks that don't have, that stable background, the problem is that they're just struggling to get by, and they're not able to tell their children, the importance of school, because school is preparing you for to get a skill. You get a skill and then you can earn. And I think that that's what's happening right now, is that a lot of folks are trying to short circuit and shortcut things. And I was thinking about the red pill today, and one of the big things I thought about the red pill, every red pill movement is trying to shortcut something or short circuit something. You know, they're trying to figure out, how can I get a very attractive woman even though I don't have a job or I'm not very attractive. They're figuring out, how can I become rich with cryptocurrency or something like that, rather than get a job, get a skill or invest wisely. So it's always trying to short circuit something. And through trying to short circuit something, you get people like Andrew Tate who come along and tell people that there's a matrix and you can somehow escape it. And right now, as you can see, he himself is trying to, I won't say he's trying to escape, but he himself right now is in prison, because the truth of the matter is, and I said it before, and I'll say it over and over again, the people who truly run this place are these folks. It's simps, squares, and snitches. They run things. And trust me, I'd prefer to live in a simp, square, snitch country or town rather than an Andrew Tate's town. Any day. Any day. Because in an Andrew Tate's town, what happens to the women? So therefore, a lot of these folks who are talking red pill this, red pill that, the problem is that they don't actually have anything useful to help anyone. Because the true red pill is, how do I become someone productive? And you know, and this is from men really, because for women, I'm not sure if the productive argument is the best argument for them. And I'll never try to push that argument to women. But how do I become productive? How do I become someone who can garner wealth? And it's not only garnering wealth, because I always believe that before you can even garner wealth, one of the biggest things you have to do is is just feed yourself. And one of the things that I came across that I'll never forget, I think I came across this in the first year when I went to university, and it has always stuck with me, because of the fact that I do believe that it's one of the most, I would say it's one of the most important lessons I learned for a while. Let me try to find it here. And I will just share this with you guys, because I do believe that, you know, I think this, if anyone wants to think that there's a true red pill, this is the true red pill, because it's basically just showing you how we come across, how we advance as people. And it's very easy, extremely easy. I'll just show you. All right. So, same thing, you're encouraging, productive men to excel. That's the point of any movement, any country that wants to be a success. And when Kevin Samuels came across, he was telling men to wear suits and all that stuff. And I always told people, you know, there's nothing wrong with wearing a suit, but that's an image. That's not substance. So, he was saying, wear the suit, which is just basically, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The true thing was how to become innovative. And when I look at, you can search it in Google. Search in Google, tech startup, and you rarely ever see black people in there, in the group of folks that are tech startup, because that's the real substance, being innovative, being creating stuff. The problem is that, and I'll show you where the problem comes. The problem comes here, and this is what I learned in university. Call it Maslow hierarchy of needs. One of the first needs that anyone has is their psychological needs. Your air, food, water, all of that stuff. You need those things. And then you need safety. Then after you get over those two needs, then you can get into love, belonging, all of that stuff. Then you can go to esteem and then self-actualization. The problem that we have is, If you live in an unsafe area, like let's say you live in a very unsafe area that you walk down the street and you can be harmed, you never generally pass you never pass the bottom two. And because you never pass the bottom two, you cannot short circuit all your way back up to self actualization. You can't. So therefore, when people live in safe neighborhoods and their parents are working and they're providing for them, they start life level 3. They start life level 3. And so therefore they can pursue, the higher level stuff, which ends up with them being, collaborating, innovating, all of that stuff. Someone who has gun, bullets whistling in the air every night, all of that stuff, they cannot even focus. They can't study. They can't think. And so therefore they're just focused on their physiological and their safety needs. That's all they care about right now. But once you come from this loving family, you have this network around you, you start life ahead. And that's the key to it. That's why so many billionaires started out in middle class families. Because the truth of the matter is, all they needed was safety, security, and stability and encouragement, and they could move up the ladder. That's all they needed. Safety, security, and just a feeling of belonging. That's all they actually needed. But the problem is that our children, many of our children, live in unsafe areas. And so because they live in unsafe areas, they're so concerned with their safety. And the worst thing is that if they live in true poverty, which happens in the third world a lot, if they don't have enough water or food or that, or they're sheltered, they're not living, then they cannot even advance to the second level. They can't. And so that's one of the things that, and you can tie this right back to the red pill. The red pill movement has been trying to focus on level one, physiological needs. And if you notice, the last one in there is reproduction. That's all it's focused on. How can these men have as many women as possible? That's all it's focused on. It's a low level, low vibrational movement. It doesn't help them move forward. And that's why no red pill man can truly have a good discussion with an intelligent man and win that discussion, because his focus is always on the lowest level needs. And the thing is that once you move up the ladder, right, it explains things. Because I feel good, and I can tell you guys, I'm married. I feel good when I go to bed and my wife is beside me and I hug her and I kiss her and we go to bed. And we wake up together. And you know what? We help each other out. Sometimes we have arguments. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes we do have arguments and that. But I get that love and belonging. My kids, we chat sometimes. They do have chores and they do talk back at times. But guess what? We work together as a family. We're a team. We're a unit. And being a team and unit, we get them to level 3. And that's important. Getting them to level 3 is important. They now have to step up the ladder to get that esteem. And then one day, hopefully, they can get that self actualization. And that's my hope for my kids, that they will climb up that ladder. Because one of the things is, and I did this already, is that we have these reptilian brains, this prehistoric brains that, try to mate, try to survive, all of that stuff. And that's a helpful part of our brain. But that only takes care of security and survival. But that emotional brain, that feeling brain, that, the same thing, that's why we love dogs so much, because they're emotional and feeling. That emotional brain and feeling brain really comes out when they're safe. Because when dogs are not safe, dogs are very dangerous when you're not safe. And then that last part, that rational brain, thinking brain, really works well when we feel safe, we feel love, and we feel stable. And that's a true red pill. And the truth is, what's so funny, I learned this in the 90s in a university, in a third world university. I learned this. Third world university. Third world. And in learning this, I quickly learned that we as human beings need safety. And, the next part I wanted to leave you guys with was, look at this. Everyone knows this, but we're not practicing this. we have to build up the individual. The individual will build up the family will build the community, and the community will build the nation. And the thing that we are doing nowadays is we're so individualistic that we're forgetting to build the family. And because we don't build a family, people don't get that feeling of belonging, that love and belonging. They never get it. And because they don't get that feeling of love and belonging, they end up being defensive. They end up spending most of their time trying to figure out how to protect themselves. They never get that chance to sit down and self-actualize, do stuff and do stuff to move themselves forward. So my what I leave you guys with is, and I'll really really tell you, the true red pill I have found out, and I found this out years ago, guys, back in the 90s. The true red pill is understanding that we need to create safety for ourselves first. We need to create safety and security for ourselves first. And as you can see, that comes through employment, resources, health, all of that stuff. And to get that, then you can start to have your family really feel comfortable and stable. And then you can help them. And not everyone will take the step into the green and the blue. Not everyone will. I know that. Not everyone will take that step forward in the green and blue. Some people even revert, but you give them the best chance that they can have to move forward. And that's truly what the red pill is. And I'll leave you with one other chart, because this chart is so important. I was looking at, you know, what was happening in 2015. They did the census, did some community survey. I'll remove the banner so you can actually see the source of this. And this community survey was done by the US Census Bureau American Community Survey. And one of the key things was, I was noticing that the people who earned the highest median income were newer immigrants. Well, the newer immigrants ethnicities were earning the higher income. And quickly I saw that these folks came in and they were happy to be there. They feel great that they finally have the chance to grow. And when people are like that and they don't take things for granted, they work harder, they are more engaged, and obviously they'll earn more. I find that when people are comfortable and in a comfort zone, they tend not to produce as well as they should. But you know what? Some people I've come across, they have learned how to stay hungry. That's something that Steve Jobs, spoke about, staying hungry. That's something that I will always try to strive to do. Because if you don't stay hungry, if you don't keep pushing yourself, you will fall behind. And there's no doubt about that. And every time I look at this chart, what it tells me is some people are comfortable where they are. Some folks are happy to be where they are and they're trying to maximize. And that is the true red pill. The true red pill is waking up every day and trying to move forward, trying to advance forward, trying to get stuff going. Because as far as I can see, and I'm very, very happy about it, is that when people figure out, and the earlier they figure out in life that they need to do well in school, they need to get a skill, and they need to work hard, the earlier they figure that out, it's the better for them. And then later they learn to save and invest and all of that stuff. Those are our upper class folks. And when Charles Murray did this book, Coming Apart, that's what he found. He found that the folks that were wealthy were not sitting on their laurels. They were ensuring the next generation would be wealthy. They were ensuring that they're sending them to the best private schools. They were making sure that they were doing extracurricular activities. Because to them, what was important is that they got into one of those top universities. That was always important to them. Well, the rest of us just struggled to get by. And so he was almost showing that there was always going to be a permanent upper class and a permanent lower class. And people have to make that choice because it's fluid in the sense that when people wake up, and they, decide in their mind that, listen, I am going to make the best of my life and I'm going to climb this ladder. When they wake up, they too can climb the ladder of success. And that is the true red pill. Now, I want to close off in saying, as I said, I do know that the Black community all over the place will separate into classes. It will. And one of the key things is I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually don't. I actually think that it's good that some folks will adopt a more mainstream culture or some will adopt a specialized hybrid culture. But what's important is we have to keep asking ourselves, is what we're doing today, is it working? And if it's not, probably it's time to change. Thanks, guys.